Welcome to the Gospel for Men podcast. I'm your host, Mark Winton, Associate Pastor of Grace PCA here in Lawrence, Kansas. And the simple purpose of this podcast is really just to encourage you and equip you in the sufficiency of the gospel to form you as men to glorify and enjoy Jesus in this generation. Brothers, thanks so much for tuning in. This podcast really is just going to be used to highlight our upcoming fish fry, which is going to be May 21st from 6 to 8 p.m. out at the Harvat property, which is 1066 East 1800 Road. Again, from 6 to 8 p.m. The fish fry, the John Harvat Memorial Fish Fry, really is going to continue our theme from 1 Corinthians 16, where the Apostle Paul tells the church in Corinth this statement: be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong. Let all that you do be done in love. And so again, this year's theme is act like men. And as our men's ministry team wanted to highlight this idea of biblical masculinity, we thought that passage from 1 Corinthians 16 did that very succinctly and very powerfully. But then to even play out, what does it mean to be a biblical man? We really do that in three different ways. We do that in the way that we shepherd, in the way that we build, and in the way that we lead. And so I'm really excited how this idea of shepherding is kind of coinciding with this John Harvat Memorial Fish Fry. And if you think about a shepherd, all of those attributes from 1 Corinthians 16 are attributes of a shepherd. A shepherd has to be watchful. A shepherd has to stand firm. A shepherd has to act like men. That word act like men in the Greek talks about a mature courage. And then again, a shepherd has to do everything in love. This regard that the shepherd has to have both for the individual sheep and for the flock as a whole. So as we think about this upcoming John Harvat Memorial Fish Fry and this idea of acting like men and this idea of being shepherds, I wanted to invite my good friend Seth Heidi to come and speak about particularly John Harvat and his example and influence as a biblical man and even as a shepherd. So Seth, thank you so much for coming and just speaking of your dear friend. Just tell us first and foremost, just like how your relationship with John Harvat kind of started and grew over the years.
Yeah, so really started many years ago, probably 20, 25 years ago. Our children are about the same age. Two of them were in the same classes in Eudora. So both of us were part of the Eudora community, still are. So knowing John and his kids, I was a teacher and then assistant principal and principal at Eudora Elementary School, currently where I'm at, and got to know their family just through school events, even up through the grades, sports events, activities, just community events around Eudora, and appreciated that relationship with Shelley and John and the girls through the years. And then also, I was director of children's ministry here at Grace from 2003 to 2008. So really, as their kids were young and growing as ours were, just getting to work alongside them, teaching the children, Children's Church Sunday School, where John and Shelley were a big part of doing that. And so just the joy of getting to share and teaching our kids together and other children as well. And then in 2019, John had kind of met a smaller Bible study in Eudora with some men. And really, I don't know how it came together. Providentially, God had us talking about this, but we both really had this passion for wanting to start a Bible study in Eudora, not just an outreach there, but Grace Men that could be a part of that too. And so it was just kind of like, were you thinking about that? And I was thinking about that too. And so we started that in 2019 at Zeb's Coffee Shop on, Thursday mornings is what we started with. Eventually, through COVID and we moved it to evenings, and then it was at the Harvat barn. So, and that remains still to this day. And I'll talk some more about that coming up. But just knowing John in the community, so many people just through his experience with activities and sports and his kids being in the public school just gave him a platform and opportunity to just interact with so many people, especially in Eudora. And everybody knew John. He was my eye doctor. He was many people's eye doctor as well. And just the impact there, but just knowing him there, for example, just his fingerprints are still on so many things. We have in our elementary school in Eudora, the Cardinal Marathon Club.
That's right. David's been a part of that.
Yeah, and it's just kids work on it twice a week after school, volunteer led PTO endeavor that John really started. And he wanted kids to get out there and be active. And the eye doctors was a sponsor. And his name is still on the t-shirt today.
That's cool.
For each of those kids that earned that when they have gotten their 26.2 across the year. John started that program and it's continues. It was happening just as I left today from the school. So it continues to help. So just he created just opportunities in the community and just found ways to interact with people. So more on that in just a little bit.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, just that providence of, hey, here we are, two men. Sometimes church life, community life, family life, it seems more compartmentalized, but there were a lot of concentric circles where you guys really just got to rub shoulders, live life, be passionate about similar things.
Yes.
And that's really cool to have that kind of person.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure he enjoyed having you in his life as well. And so, as I've kind of shared this verse from 1 Corinthians chapter 16 about, and I think everybody who knew John would know, like, man, that's a biblical man there. But in terms of just what you remember of John and some of those attributes, whether it be being watchful, standing firm in the faith, doing everything in love, acting like men, what are ways that you saw John exemplify some of those attributes mentioned in that verse?
He just stepped up to lead his family well. He loved his girls. He loved Shelley well, and just did so much to support them in so many ways. And even his girls are very active in sports and activities. But I think as time went on, John really helped lead them. The priorities were more church events and things like that. And I could see that change in him and teaching, and then even evolving into leading men here in so many ways in the Bible study. And he just had a passion that continued to blossom as his kids grew, that just prioritizing worship and church events, and just his witness through all those connections that I talked about earlier. And he was given so many opportunities to do that, and he took advantage of those times. I know just from children's ministry out to so many things, he just continued to know God's word better and how to teach that to children, but then to other men, and then those biblical truths to others. Shelley and the girls were a part of that, and serving and doing so much, youth group things and all through the years, that he just led in a way that showed this is what mattered the most. And this is going to still have an impact in the community, because this is who I am. This is who we are. Our identity, even in the world, not being of the world, as he's in the community of Eudora. And then also there was just really some tender times too, all through the years in Bible study. It just at the barn, I might have been more of the organizer, but he was more of just the evangelist, I guess, in our roles and co-leading that. It was just, yes, we prepared well and had wonderful discussions, life impacting discussions all the time. But John just took this to another level when we talked intimately as a group in the Bible study. Like, he just had a way of just making it personalized and you to think about how it impacted your life at just so many different levels, and thinking about that, how it applies to how am I as a husband? How am I as a leader in my house? How am I with my children and in serving others? And you could just see again his passion for sharing the gospel with everyone around him, but in that equipping the saints in a lot of kind of setting too. In the Bible study, and just fun discussions with him too, of just like, oh, can we tackle this next book? Can we really do Hebrews? That's a lot. I'm like, no, we're going to go for it. And just his passion for that, for God's word in the Bible study, was just off the charts and was such an inspiration to me. And just the impact that he had on the guys there is just incredible.
Yeah, I think that Eudora study still, it's impressive. Like, both of those Bible studies are still going on. right? Like the Thursday one at Zeb's, and again, the Harvat's willingness to let people still come to the barn.
Thank you, Shelley.
And for, yes, thank you, Shelley, for a myriad things, not just the fish fry, but like men still coming on a regular
Yes.
basis
Yes.
into the barn to have that. But what you say, like that shepherding, that, yeah, there's a standing firm in the faith, the propositional truth of the word, but that Wednesday night study really has an ethos, from what I've heard, of just really getting to the heart of the matter. And that's a shepherding issue, right? Of just like, hey, this truth, like forms, doesn't just inform, but forms, right? That's the heart of a shepherd, to say, hey, I care about the full extent of the sheep, not just their knowledge, but those kinds of things. And then really just kind of the last question of anything maybe you haven't shared, but just ways that you saw John actively shepherd in his family, in the community, in the church. Anything else you'd want to add in that vein?
Yeah, just uh being a man, you referred to this earlier. It's not being this tough guy, tough image kind of thing. It is living out godliness in all things, especially in leading your family. And he did that, but you could see that. And if you ever went to the eye doctors and saw that, I mean, I'd never seen anybody be so thorough and well, fun and great
Yeah.
too. He was living out the gospel and his attitude toward the public, serving them and not cutting corners, like doing his job with excellence.
Yeah.
You could see that. Uh, and then just his bold witness, like he would not, especially after he knew the diagnosis, and he just it was incredible and inspiring that he just would not retreat or hold back from sharing the gospel or where his hope was. And that was with his family, that was with others. It was just, again, his involvement with the public schools and the public schools in Eudora, the events, the activities. He rubbed shoulders with so many people, whether it be this, a competitive volleyball team group that his daughter was on, or whatever he was doing. People knew that he loved the Lord, right? And that joy and that passion was in everything. And he worked to give himself opportunities to be a part of that in the public sphere, right? And that's why it was just, that's what I think of with him, that he was just so involved in so many things. So he had the opportunity to share the gospel. And again, he leading his family to be in the world. That is just like the most beautiful thing, but not of the world, right? That he was out there at sports and talking with people or other events, that was just a joy to see. And
Sure.
that's how we need to be, in salt and light in our world. And he just made sure that was happening. One other area, when our daughter Ava had her leukemia diagnosis, right at that same time, right?
Yeah.
So
So
he was he was so good to Ava. He just, during that time, was even more encouraging and loving to people at a whole nother level. And that meant so much to Ava and our family. But again, just his walk with the Lord after his diagnosis was, I mean, he went for broke on everything. I mean, he did not shy away opportunities to share. He just knew his time may be short, and he did not take that for granted. So just his fire for the Lord, his passion to share that with men and other men and families was just, it was never wavering. And that's why the fish fry is like, it's just the perfect example. He built this pond out there. He wanted opportunities, the barn there, to have events and to have guys there. So we could do things like this and share the gospel and get guys involved, coming fishing with him or whatever, having them over for dinner. He just took every opportunity to share Christ. And just his loving interactions with his own family and others was just such a joy. And that's what I always think about, and thinking back to John and his life, that, whether you had a nickname or not,
Right.
him, my mind was Seth Man, Seth Man.
Seth Man.
Right.
Nice.
My son Rig was always Riggs.
Riggs, okay.
So whether you had a nickname or not, you just know you were loved by John because the Lord loved him first. And those are the things I think of, and just his impact continues to be there.
Sure. Well, even what you just closed out with, like that he loved others so well. Obviously, you sharing very personally and poignantly about, his love for the Heidi family during just a difficult time in your guys' own life. And what you just shared there at the end about him loving well because of him knowing the love, right? I think everything that you share talked about John being a shepherd because he recognized he needed a shepherd.
Exactly.
Right. And he had been shepherded so well by the Lord Jesus Christ. And he just wanted to do that in return. And just hearing you talk about all these different things, a lot of times I think we hear that first exhortation of be watchful. And there is, the Apostle Paul does talk about in his farewell address. Well, that's to the church in Ephesus, but hey, be watchful. There are going to be some false teachers come in. But and John was watchful in that way, right? Knowing the truth and guarding the truth. But I think he was watchful just in what I've heard you share. He was watchful in opportunity.
Yes.
Right? Like I could have opportunity and shepherding impact in all these different ways and just always being watchful for opportunities for the gospel in the lives of men or whoever he was around. So like you said, in his practice, in his home, in the church, in the sports, in the school, in the community, in the studies, all of these different ways. And so I'm just, it continues to just bless and amaze me how God just lines things up so perfectly as we think about this John Harvat Memorial Fish Fry and just the theme for this year. And as we talk about shepherding, one of the things that the men's ministry wanted to do this year that maybe is a little bit different in years past is we're having one of the great benefits that we have at Grace, given our size, is that we really have men from every generation. We've got, single men, we've got young dads, we've got middle-aged dads, and then we've got granddads. And so as we explore these three roles of shepherding, building, and leading, we're actually going to have different men, not just the pastors, speak about these realities, but we're going to have men from each of these generations talk about that. So as we talk about shepherding at our fish fry, we've actually got Stephen Sweat, if you don't know him, who's going to be talking about this idea of shepherding from 1 Corinthians 16. The reason why we wanted to pick Stephen, he is one of these young dads, shepherding well, got 6 young children, all of them, I think all boys, all under the age of 15. So he definitely knows something about shepherding. And then even in his professional life, he's a counselor. And so kind of knows some of that tending to sheep from, and the needs of sheep from his professional calling and vocation as well. So anyway, all of this is just to really hopefully encourage you guys. This John Harvat Memorial Fish Fry is going to be just an outstanding event. It's going to be a beautiful spring evening. We're going to have lots of fish. We're going to have burgers and hot dogs. And then it's really just going to be great fellowship and substantive content because that's what John would want. Out at the Harvat property, again, May 21st from 6 to 8 p.m. Please register and pay on Realm. You'll be able to pay there, but it's just easier if you do that. And then that way we know we've got enough food on hand as well. You're going to want to bring some bug spray. You're going to want to bring a lawn chair. And we just are very excited to have you join us again for the John Harvat Memorial Fish Fry. Thanks so much for tuning in. The Lord bless you and keep you. And we'll look forward to seeing you on May 21st. And Seth, thanks so much for you joining us and just giving a very fitting and honorable tribute to your dear friend, John Harvat.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.